agenda. Do you have an agenda?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Right in front of you, Will. Is it?
Oh, I don't see it. They always neglect me.
Hold on. You're away.
Okay.
I'll take one more.
Take
4 or 5.
Oh, I'm good.
Ooh,
I know, fudge strike.
Those for you?
Yeah, go set them up, I'll
shake them
talk
up.
to the important people
You're
some
alive.
first.
Oh, well, I'll wait.
That's right. I got my 2. I'm
Well, as
good.
long as Jen got
As long
her.
as I got my 2.
Mr. Gallagher.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I think we got to get started here. It's 1 o'clock.
That's what we have. Where's it ready?
Yeah, I don't know. So we'll have a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So, thank you very much. And so then we will go to roll call.
Commissioner Anstorgi,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton, Chairman Bunnick,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Sotis Little,
Here.
Commissioner Rattenbach,
She said here.
and Commissioner Lautner. Present.
Thank you. Thank you. So then that would bring, is there any public comment? If you'd like to call in, the number's 231-256-8109, 231-256-8109. Okay, so then now we'll move on then to the action items. And the first item on the list would be our memo reviews and the one we have for law enforcement. If everyone wanted to look at those, and we could,
On the hazard pay?
yeah, the hazard pay.
Okay. Let me just go over that because it was on agenda last Tuesday and will be again next Tuesday evening. And several commissioners asked for a breakdown with different options. And as always, Jen has done an excellent job of a very detailed breakdown. So let's look first time, you have 2 sheets in front of you. Let's look at the one that says law enforcement only on top. Everyone see that? You have 2. One says law enforcement and full-time employees, the other one just says law enforcement. Everyone has that?
Yeah.
Patricia, do you have that? Okay. So what Jen did, and she can answer all your questions, we took the names out, obviously, you didn't need to know the names, but she broke it down specifically person by person. So between law enforcement, that's all their employees, plus the dispatchers. Last week I said 59 because of retirement and 1 more coming on board. This is based on 60, right, Jen? Correct?
Yes, 60 without the new employee that started this past Monday.
Yeah, so 60 people. So the question is, what is the cost on top of that? The biggest concern, I guess, debate or misunderstanding is whether MERS has to be paid on top of that. I checked with our legal counsel, Jen checked with MERS. In the specific law on hazard pay, MERS is not addressed in it. There's no provision that says hazard pay or not pay. That's not part of the law. The Michigan Department of Treasury has ruled that's a issue between the local unit government and MERS. Obviously, the Department of Treasury does not get involved with the MERS issue because each unit government has their own different version of MERS, and even within that, we have here, 5 different versions of MERS? 4 versions?
Yes.
4 groups, I think. So really, it comes down to, it's not in the law about MERS, nor has the Michigan Department of Treasury mandated that it be included or not included. So we checked with, and they would not do that with any type of pay. That's a local issue between the unit government and MERS. So then Jen contacted MERS and got a response. And with what we assume, it is up to that local unit of government to make that decision. In the past, we have always included any type of pay to be MERS eligible. There's good and bad about that. You can argue both ways. If it's included, then it counts towards the employee final compensation. If it's not included, then the county does not pay for it, but it's not included in the employee's compensation either. So what Jen did is broken down, but we can talk about, but in general, if you look at it, if you just go to the last page, I think it'll give you your answers. And then also Jen put in there the cost for FICA and workman's comp. But if you go to the last page on the yellow, based on,
On which form, Chad?
on the one that says law, we're just talking about the law enforcement.
Okay.
And this is based on $1,000. So go to the last page where it's yellow. For 60 employees times 1,000, obviously it's $60,000. And then Jen broke down every group because every group has a different MERS rate. But if you go across the board, you have all the different MERS rates. You have FICA and you have workman's comp. The total cost is $74,398.20 if MERS is included. Then the question was, what would it cost us to typewriter just for law enforcement dispatcher? So obviously, just take the number in half, it'd be $30,000 for potential reimbursement. Our total cost would be $37,199.10. Everyone understand that? And then on top is the breakdown for unions versus POM, which is general versus COM, and all members. So it gives a detailed breakdown there. So then a couple of commissioners asked, what if we were to do it for all employees? So that's the second sheet. Go ahead.
May I ask you,
Yeah.
so to understand this fully, are all the MERS, you included the MERS?
We included
costs
MERS in it, yes.
in this? Okay, so for the first, like for the POAM, 18.33%, $183 per employee, et cetera. COAM, okay, a little bit more,
Yeah, because they all have different rates.
and then, that doesn't look like, what am I missing? Because that doesn't look like we thought it'd be a whole lot less than that, so what is missing in there that, we thought MERS would be more than these amounts, right?
No,
Well, if you look at 60,000 and you have 14,000, that's about 20%.
Well, we were talking more like 18, what I'm saying is, we thought, we were guessing that it would be like 18,000 Monday when we discussed it.
Yeah,
right?
we were guessing, the
Yeah.
actual numbers is $14,398.20.
Okay, so this is.
This is actual, we were guessing.
14, okay, all right.
So
that's
take
the
the,
difference.
take the total, 74,398 minus
It's on
60,000.
So it's only 14, so it's a little less, and that includes MERS.
That includes MERS.
Okay, good,
Then obviously, at 500, it's half of that amount.
okay, all right.
Then the question was asked, what if we gave all our employees?
That was a question, though.
So when I look at FICA, we're looking at the part that we're paying. We're not really including, because the other part would be taken out of their $1,000 or
Yes.
whatever it is.
that's correct.
Okay, that's why I was thinking 15%, because I was adding the ones together.
Right.
But because it'll come out of that $1,000, their part, or
Correct.
whatever it is.
If you choose to do the MERS option, then the majority of these groups also will pay in on top of what you pay. So let's say, for instance, on the MERS general group is 22.65, I believe their pay-in is 2.92 or 3%. The employee would pay that portion in as
So we're
well.
not looking at what they have to pay out of this as
Correct.
well.
This is
We're
just
only looking
your
at
expense.
Over and above whatever they pay.
Yes.
So how much would it cost the county?
Right.
Then the answer at $1,000 would be $74,398.
That's why it's much less.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you look at the percentage, the percentage we gave you Monday or Tuesday is accurate.
Right, it's 15% or 14.
Well, it'd be more actually, because it's 60,000, 20% would be 12,000.
Oh, yeah.
So actually, it's a little more, it's about 22-23%. We guess 15 to 20%. So in that respect, we were actually a little low. The dollar amount, we were a little high, but it's very close.
Okay. So at least 20%, that's right.
It's over 20%, about 22% cost. Okay, the next sheet is several of you have asked for a breakdown. What did we give all our employees? So that means law enforcement, dispatchers, and we based it on full-time employees only. Because if you go part-time, you could argue, I mean, that's.
So we won't get it.
No, no, but you could change that, that's something. No, actually, you cannot change it, you cannot change the compensation. So,
There would be.
so once again, Jen did an excellent job, so let's just turn to the last page. Once again, the 500 is based on everyone getting $500, so that's law enforcement, dispatchers, and every other full-time employee. So that cost would be $31,019.35. However, of that amount, the $500 for the law enforcement and dispatch would potentially be reimbursed. So if you look at that 500.
Hold on, yep, so I did it the same, so I did it on this one, I did the law enforcement's the second page, so that's reimbursed, check, and then on the back page is just the non-law
Yeah,
enforcement.
thank you for the clarity, yeah.
Yep,
I was gonna go there, but you beat me.
yep.
So at 500, it gives you the numbers there.
Okay.
That's how the 31,000.
So since we're just getting this and trying
Yeah.
to work our way through it, so if we look at, we were saying before, well, if it's going to cost us 17,000, and it would have been just across the street, or 20,000, whatever that number would be, we could do something for all our employees, and it would cost us 31 plus a little bit more.
So what it would be is on this 5-page, so basically what I was looking at is I ran the figures, page 1 and 2 is your law enforcement, which would be your federal grant, you'd get your $30,000 back.
Right, so that'd be a little more.
Then when you go to page
So
5,
$7,099 would be our cost.
$71.99 would be out of pocket,
Okay.
That
yeah,
should be just the law enforcement and
Just-
when we say law enforcement and dispatch, right?
correct.
It's everybody.
Correct, and then Chet has a couple, when he goes to look at the application, because I'm not sure if the secretary of staff falls into that, and so.
But we'll get that clarified.
Yeah, he's gonna have to get that clarified.
But
So-
for now, we included that.
Yes, for now, they are included in this law enforcement package. And so that's the 30,000, that would be reimbursable through the federal CARES. And then on page 5, if you chose to do all the other departments, your expense would be 31,019, if you did 500.
At 500. Okay.
There's some possibility that there might be some CARES reimbursement for the non-law enforcement.
The only possibility I see is for senior services because they were delivering food to the needy.
Okay.
I don't see anywhere the rest of the employees would be eligible. And that's a big if about senior services.
So the total cost then would be 38,000 or plus around 38,000?
No.
If we did the employees and at
Yeah,
500?
right, you have, if the $500 option would be yes, the 31,000 plus the first set of 2 pages benefits.
Yes,
Yeah,
ballpark.
right, 38,200.
And then we did it at 250 also.
And insurance.
And that's with our making the voluntary choice to include
Yes.
MERS.
Yes.
Yeah,
We don't have to.
that's right.
What would it be if we back MERS out? I'm glad you brought that up. That's gonna be my next question.
So if you were to back the MERS out, then your exposure is gonna be your FICA and workers' comp. And I had our workers' comp audit this morning, and these wages would be included. The only thing that's not included in a workers' compensation audit is travel reimbursement. I clarified that this morning with him.
A question. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. So are there any repercussions if we don't add MERS in? It's just
There's no-
down the road, there's no benefit to the employee on this.
Correct.
Correct? But
Correct.
no penalty for us.
Not that I'm aware of, no. No,
Okay.
it appears that when I got my response back from MERS, sorry, I believe Sonia put in there's a form that the board has to adopt. to exclude these wages.
Without the form, they will automatically, as they would for any type of
Yep.
compensation.
Like a longevity payment, like, you know, the vacation payouts or personal day payouts, those are all MERS reportable.
The standard procedure is any type of financial compensation is MERS reportable. We would have to request to be excluded for this one time.
Yeah, that's,
Commissioner Sulis.
and that was what I was going to focus on. What type of pay has been included before? And it sounds like it's the normal type of pay that's associated with an employee.
It's easier to answer what type of pay has not been included, and the answer is none.
Right, tax
Every-
But this is a very special
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
It's hazard pay recognizing
So this is
a
what,
particular period of time which you would probably never encounter again.
this is the decision you need to make Tuesday. Because really, right now, you're just deciding whether you're gonna apply for potential reimbursement. So look at the form. You have to decide how much,
Right,
who to include,
right.
and that's it.
But I think part of that decision in terms of how much is whether we do the MERS. or
Well,
we don't
yes,
do the
yeah,
MERS.
but I'm saying,
And
from,
that's why I
for
was
this step of
asking.
the process though, we're just talking about whether you're gonna apply to get an answer from the state of Michigan. You
No, I
don't have to
understand.
issue the checks.
I understand.
No, but I'm saying you don't have to make a decision this next week about the rest of the employees. That has nothing to do with the form we have to submit to the state of Michigan.
Well, I would
Just-
be with you.
yeah, I just
think
wanna
we
make sure
do
what they're
need to
saying.
Make that decision, and whether or not we're going to include everybody rather than just the law enforcement. But I think it's important also to look at, as I'm looking at this, this is something that occurs maybe once in a person's work lifetime. So it's not like the kind of compensations that come along that are associated with a normal employee, their vacation time, their all the other things that get included for MERS. So to me, there's justification to not include it.
It's strictly your choice.
Yeah.
There are no financial penalties or consequences of not doing that. Well, there are consequences long-term.
Commissioner Wetzel.
The other option we might consider that wouldn't cost us money, but still reward staff, would be to give them a 1 or 2 day bonus vacation day. If we could manage the workload, we could give that benefit and we wouldn't have to pay the $31,000.
That'd be a decision you would have to make. That would nothing to do with the state. CARES Act, but yes, you have that option, always.
Commissioner Walker.
It's not a bad idea, but I think that could create some overtime situations possibly. And I know some of the offices are at their minimum staff, so that could just create a shortage. We really have to ask department heads where they are on that, but I appreciate all these numbers. I think we got something that we have something in front of us we can actually move forward on.
But just one thing, I just want to make sure I understand this. For Tuesday, you have a decision whether you're going to apply to the state for potential reimbursement. If the answer is yes, it's how much you want per person and who do you want included. Whether you decide to do it for the employees, the other employees or not, you don't have to make a decision Tuesday. Because all you're doing is Tuesday is authorizing the chairman to sign off on the request for reimbursement. We may not get reimbursement. You know, so this is just to fill out that form to see if we are eligible for reimbursement. But the form simply, you have to list the number of employees that you want to be considered for reimbursement and the amount. The other decisions, once you get a response back from the state, then you can make a decision whether you want to include other individuals. That's a decision you have to make with your budget. That's nothing to do with the CARES Act.
How long does it take? Do you have any idea? Sorry. How long does it take? to
It's a
get-
first come, first serve.
No. How long does it take to get the decision of whether or not you're going to?
It depends when they come in. Depends how, they will not give you, the turnaround, as I understand, so far has been fairly quick. The deadline is September 30th,
Right. I was gonna say.
but they actually have approved, I know some counties already got an answer back. So there's no, They won't tell you they'll get you back in 5 days, 10 days, 20 days. It's just based on how many they get, what the dollar amount is, and how much is left in the pot.
But they will let us know by September 30th.
Yes.
And we don't have to put out, but we have to put out the checks by September 30th. So we're supposed to know before we have to do the
Yes.
checks.
And that's the change from previous.
That gives you the timeline.
So we will know before, yes. However, it does commit you to issuing the checks.
Right. Whenever we get the okay. Commissioner Lautner, did you have your hand up?
No.
But the MERS issue is between MERS and the unit government. It's nothing to do with the CARES Act.
It's just more money.
It's how you wish to allocate this form of compensation. Any questions on that? I think those were the options that were discussed last week. Mr. Lauter, you were the most vocal on that. I think these are the 4 options that we discussed, correct? So, thank you, Jen. That was a lot of work on your part quickly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So you have time to think, we just want to make sure you have those numbers today. Gives you ample time to think about it for Tuesday. The other decision you have to make Tuesday is specifically who you want. Do you include all of these individuals in law enforcement and dispatch or not? Because you don't have to include them all. For example, I'm not using an example, there's bailiffs, there's Marine Patrol, and there's support staff.
And 911.
And 911, yeah. In theory, you could pick and choose whoever you wish.
How has COVID impacted, for example, the bailiff? They have more to do, more risk?
There have not been any cases for the bailiffs, except just last week, there was a jury selection at the band, as I understand.
Right, it was, we met to go over if we're to have a jury trial, what it's gonna look like there at the Grand Traverse Band. They're looking to hire the showroom so that we could have 75 jurors plus the judges. So that was the first time we'd seen them since COVID.
That's the only time that they have reported.
So their exposure will be later now if there's jury trials and we're off-site.
If there are, yeah.
Are they being paid?
Yes. Well, they only get paid when they work. I believe they're all retired individuals drawing their pension, so they only get paid for when they're here. They're not on salary. So really, they have not received a paycheck outside of this one that's in the last week.
So they don't have unemployment or anything?
No, because they're retired. Any questions on that?
All right, then we would move on to the 2021 budget, the list that we have here, that's from the memo.
Yeah, and it'd probably be helpful for Jen to go over this, and she's really is the one that has her pulse on the budget situation, and even though my name's on it, actually Jen has always done most of the work, I'll be honest with that. And so I think we kind of went over this list verbally last time, but that'll be helpful. And then what we normally do is then you tell us which group or individuals you wish to come back and give updates. And there may be things listed on here that you want to add to from various departments or individuals. But I thought, in the past at least, this has been a good starting point for you. And then you can tell us, if there's some things that you all agree should be included in the budget, then there really is no reason for that person to come to present it. But a lot of times you have questions or you'd like more information, and that's when we bring those people in. So I'm assuming that'll be the next focus of our next meetings, which is, I think, next Friday. So Jen, you want to just go over this list?
Sure, except I don't have it with me.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't know if there was extra.
I got an extra one.
Oh,
Oh, we got extra.
thank you.
I just thought you had it all.
I brought my other one.
It wasn't in my budget folder. Okay. So first up,
John, you have a comment?
I did it, we pretty much did it, when Chet put this together, by department. So, the first request that is not included is the amount that the Marine Division had put on their budget for the boat. And then the second, amount was the sheriff's inmate housing. This is included, it's the 15,000 I talked about when your books were given out.
Commissioner Nance already wants
Oh,
to
I'm
ask a
sorry.
question.
Should we do them one at a time
Oh,
here?
oh,
Let's
sure.
just, we can just, maybe some of these we can just
Oh, you want a decision right now?
Well, not necessarily a decision, but
Well, if there's consensus on some items,
Oh,
consensus.
I'm sorry, I thought I was just doing a review. Okay. So the first one is the Marine Division, and that would be the percentage of the grant for the boat.
Go ahead.
Last year, we didn't include it in the budget. Do we want to do that again or not do that?
We don't usually, unless we have the grant, you know, we may, because then we figure we may have to put it on a contingent, but we usually don't put it in. What I thought we were going to do was start a capital improvement fund for replacing the boats. That's what I was hoping to see. And, you know, and if, I mean, that's what I thought we had talked about doing, and that's what I thought we recommended to the sheriff, is that he start something where, I know he has to replace his boats at some time, and some of them are 30 years old. And, you know, and so, I don't know.
he actually came to us, as I remember, saying he had potential donors and wanted to
Right.
start the process.
Well, but that was for that 118,000.
Yeah, asking for the whole boat, he thought he may have some, but as far as I know, there's been no formal commitments.
Right.
So, you know, if our past practice is not put it in the budget, let's not put it in the budget. Let's move on.
What do you say?
That was my question, is have we had any physical donations to the boat yet? Actual donations for the boat, not? No? Okay.
To the best of my knowledge, no. If they would have been over 500, they would have come to the board anyway, so.
I agree, let's leave it out for now, because listening to the sheriff, that I understand, once he gets a commitment that we are approved, he's got the people waiting in the wings, and then all those funds could come
Well, and
forward.
as you well know, there's no guarantee we'll get approved. We've been
Exactly.
unsuccessful the last.
Which is
number
all
of
the more
years.
reason to leave it out for now and expect that that would be donated funds, or that our sheriff expects those would be donated funds. Okay?
Anybody else?
Well, I'm still looking for something that we do for capital improvements for the boats, just as we do for the cars. I mean, we planned something.
That's not this request.
I know it.
So-
And I don't disagree, it's a good idea since we do have to replace our boats at some point.
Yeah, but that's not this request.
Well, I know, but that doesn't mean we can't do that.
I assume we're going to go through the capital improvement
Okay.
That would be
plan and say, yes, we're gonna fund it, put some in this year or not. That's not this request.
And I'm in agreement to leave it out too.
Okay. Peachy, did you have anything to say?
Leave it out.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so I have the consensus is not to include it in the 2021 budget at this time. So the next is the sheriff's inmate housing camera upgrade. This upgrade is in the budget, it's included. It was part of a package that Lieutenant Roush brought forward last year to you for $30,000, and commissioners requested a 50-50. And so I have offset these funds that are going to be spent through the lieutenant's jail division budget through the inmate housing. So there is an offset of money coming in through the inmate housing fund.
I say leave it
I think
in.
that's fine. I think we've already approved it. I think
We
it
committed,
should be, yeah.
we committed.
We did what we asked. Let's leave it in.
Okay, so the next one is going to be the sheriff's budget for an increase in developmental education budget. I have included this within the expense items. The undersheriff did decrease the gas and oil and added to the education this $10,000, leaving his budget the same.
I guess my thought on this is that we'd make it 7,000 and then we got something for the 3,000 that it's for the cameras. Because he's adding, the next one down is 3,000 for the cameras. And so if we made that 7 from, for extra education, then it'd give him the 3,000 more without adding to our budget. That's my thinking on it.
I'd be curious to know what he's looking at in terms of the extra education.
We could bring them in next.
66% increase, that's a lot.
Right.
So,
Well, I know he's trying to do that anti-bias.
And I'm all for it, don't get me wrong, I'm all
Right,
for it.
right, but I'm just saying that,
so you
I'm
want to
sure
just
that's part of the cost.
bring him in?
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
please.
So do you want me to leave that the same then for the body cameras? Do you want the
Let's
sheriff to talk
Let's
about
just wait
those as
till they
well?
have their next
Okay.
meeting and
I'll
decide.
include that.
For now, just keep everything and just.
Okay. Personnel. So do you want to move to the next one, which is sheriff's personnel? Would you like him to come in to speak about that as well, or make a consensus now?
Do we know what this is?
As I understand, he did give a brief presentation several months ago. He wants to promote several of his employees to create a new sergeants, 2 new sergeant positions. Not new total positions, but within the staff, promote 2 people to sergeants, obviously at different pays.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I remember right, this was for him so he would have an officer available at all times, on the road. So at night, when there's 2 people on, one would be in charge and one wouldn't, or one would be a deputy, one would be a sergeant. I mean, last night I saw him at 2:30 in the morning, both coming down M72, pulling into Holiday Inn. The 2 cars from Leelanau County. Yes.
Holiday gas station, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they both needed gas, just happened to be there at the
So
same
it
time.
wasn't a Holiday Inn, it was
Right.
a gas station.
I'm sorry.
I know.
Holiday gas station,
Yes.
yes.
My thought on that is and I said it when he presented last time, that I thought we had enough administrative positions in the department. But as long as he's coming in, we might have him readdress that. But my understanding is he was talking about needing somebody for weekends. But as I looked at the staff list, I thought there were some other options of getting sergeants on duty and the weekends.
Well, and the lieutenant as well, who never assigned duty on the weekends, Commissioner Law.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I was just thinking, didn't we add a position between the sheriff or the undersheriff? And a few years ago, we added a position over there we never used to have before.
It's a lieutenant position.
It's a
This was several
lieutenant
years
position,
ago.
okay, so we have added, at their request, the position over there, okay.
Commissioner Ansel.
My understanding is the lieutenant is not on the road, he's an administrative type person.
He does some.
Right or wrong.
I think he does some, yeah.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, but,
Yeah,
No, I
no,
don't.
just like the sheriff and the undersheriff,
They're
they
on,
also
yeah.
go out on the road, I understand
Yeah,
that, but,
primarily duties, yes. I would think you're right.
you know, I would like to hear from him on this topic as well, but looks like we're getting a lot of chiefs and not a lot of Indians. Not a lot of workers.
Well, as you remember, you did receive a letter from MRA about this topic that we were not, the proper chain of command was not followed. Let's just leave it at that.
Illegal letter.
And what you said that you would discuss it and you would have him present at the budget meeting. So I think that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that we should do
And
that.
just, yeah. So we'll have him present all these at one time.
I wonder if, Mr. Chairman, I wonder if you might reach out to MMRA and get a second opinion on that, because I understand you did not request that.
No, and they actually apologized, as you remember, we got emails because there was no study done. The only discussion was between Lieutenant Roush and one of the members. There was no study done on the staffing levels. There was no comparisons done or anything. So they apologized and they assured us that would not happen again. There was not chain of command followed on both sides.
The next items fall under the capital improvements for towers, as well as the tower fund. And so, up to you guys on where you want to stand on this. I know that you're in negotiations and talking about conversions here on this site. The first request that Matt has is in regards to an upgrade at the Shabbaton Tower. Now, all 3 items that are next, the Shabbaton Tower, the Central and Empire Tower amplifiers, and the generators, were all things that he requested last year, and basically was kind of like it was left out, and so he's placed them in there again for this year.
You actually said, let's talk about next year.
Mhm.
So that's why it's back on the list.
Bring him in and talk about it.
Okay, bring him in, that's on hearing. I mean, there's some big ticket items, I think you'd want to hear from him before you make a decision, correct?
And I
Right,
think,
everyone.
yeah, and I think things have changed where I thought that, didn't he bring forward just recently at a board meeting where in negotiations with the Grand Traverse Band about their tower and then,
It
right?
says that in the supplemental.
Yes, and then,
Yeah, so it's just
so
gonna
really,
be-
probably the only thing that would be a hard fact would be the 2 generators, because the rest of these are kind of up in the air, depending on what you do here at this tower, so. Anyway, I'll put on here that you're gonna request for him to, be present, right?
Yeah.
We also probably should have some kind of check financially as far as, you know, we set aside money to pay for our towers,
The tower fund, yeah.
Yes.
tower fund,
Yes,
and how are we doing with that money? Are
okay.
we under, are we over? You know,
We're in good financial shape.
I understand that, but, you
But,
know.
yeah, we can give you all
if
that
he's, you know,
information.
this 911 situation is just, you know, it's a constant, every year, big ticket items. And at some point in time, you're probably gonna have to look at it and say, are we gonna have to look at how we're gonna fund
Well,
911?
Most counties have a special millage or phone surplus rate. We had one through 2010. Decision was made that time. There was actually a surplus of funds. Decision was made to take from general fund.
And,
But we are unique in that respect.
and that's what I'm getting at, is we need to check that, see how we're doing with that fund, because we keep, you know, taking money from the treasurer, you know, our different funds, and, you know, pretty soon the piggy bank's gonna be dry. So, you know, we gotta be a little careful, I would think. So, you know, and having Matt come discuss this is good, but I also wanna know where we're at financially with these funds.
So last time I did the research was a couple years ago, the vast majority of counties either have a millage or a 911 or a phone surcharge that's greater than what we have. We charge the maximum amount without a vote. Most counties have now converted to a telephone surcharge, so much per phone, and a countywide resolution has to be voted.
All I'm asking is, when we have him come in, we also wanna have the numbers of what we're currently doing. Thank you.
And he probably should talk about the plans for those funds as well, because depending on what happens with the grant, that particular fund would be used to fund the renovations to the tower here on the campus. He uses it for, like, when we need to have a propagation study in terms of all of these things come out of that fund. So he knows what he's looking at for that, and maybe if he brings that information, not just addressing this, but talk about his plans for use of that funds, would be helpful.
The next item that's on the, oh,
No
so sorry.
question.
Yeah, so, he, to back up just a little bit, he applied for those 2% grant. Did he receive anything? Or do we-
The tribe has not made a decision on their cycle. I'm assuming, usually by now we know, but I'm guessing with the shutdown for several months, I'm guessing their revenue, obviously the 2% revenue, there's no 2% unless there's people gambling. So I'm guessing their numbers are low, and obviously there's some controversy with the recent election. And so usually by now, they let us know the status of those applications, and we nor has anyone received notification of the applications that were submitted last cycle.
So do we remember what we asked the tribe for? Because their portion is 137,000 that they're responsible for, of a total of 250,000, so what did we ask for?
I thought this amount is what he asked for.
The whole amount?
$112,080.
Without checking, I think you're correct.
Okay,
I would say the odds of them approving this amount is pretty
right,
slim.
right,
I know it was over 100,000.
okay, thank you.
He states on his, paperwork that the cost of this entire project would be 248, and that they would be responsible for 136. So he wanted to put in the 112 if needed, or when needed to be If they're not successful in the 2% grant, then this project will not move forward until Grand Traverse Band commits.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I was reading from too, Jen. I just didn't see where he put it for the whole 112. But I hope he did.
Yes,
We'll keep our fingers
that's his
crossed.
request, but I did not put it in the budget.
Right, okay.
All right, so the next one on the list is, that is not included, is the probate and family court. They would like to increase the deputy probate register position from 17.5 to 28 hours. The 8326 was a number provided from the family court administrator. It is not a figure that the accounting office prepared.
And the unknown is the benefits cost, obviously, that's a huge impact.
Well, yeah, because now they become full-time.
No.
Three-quarter,
35
28 of 35.
35 is full-time. So they basically want 4 days per week. Do you want them to come in?
Go ahead.
You said these are their numbers?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I did not check Joe's figures. My guess would be the 8326 is the difference between the 28 hours to the 17 and a half. He would have taken the hourly rate, my guess, and then subtracted that and multiplied it by the number of weeks of the year.
But those are not the actual costs.
Yeah.
So it could be close, but we don't know.
Well, just for the
Correct.
salary, but the
Correct.
benefits would
No,
be.
no other compensation.
If you wish, you can request for us to put that information together before.
I would request it.
Would you like the judge to come and?
Yeah, but we need
Explain the
the
rationale.
real costs.
Well, if you want a judge to come down, we'll have those numbers for you
Right.
at the same time.
Right.
So I'm guessing you'd like the judge to come and present, right?
Yes.
I
And
think
then
yes.
obviously Jen will do the numbers.
Okay.
I'll volunteer Jen to come up with those numbers.
Thank you, thank you.
Carolyn?
Yeah, you need the funds, well.
Oh, okay.
So the next one is the Parks and Rec, which is it's included, and I just did this amount, put this in here, the 45,000. It's the same as it has been previously, with the explanation of what they're looking to make their improvements if they can. So that one is in there, and then the next one is not, and that's if the grant's approved.
So the 45,000 doesn't cover the grant then?
No.
That's what I was wondering why we hadn't doubled up on it. So what improvements, have they said what improvements?
Yeah, it says in here.
Improve bathroom facilities and possible weed control for the ponds, Old Settler Park, they're looking at some playground equipment.
Is that the bathrooms at Miles Kinley?
I think, no, that's the,
Miles Kinley Grub Shack improvement.
Veronica Valley. They wanted to do like a wooden structure that would shade the porta potties so that they're not 118 degrees when you walk into them, or 140 degrees. And, something a little bit more stable, I believe, is what those were. It's been a while. That sound right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it'd be good to have Casey come in
Yeah.
and present it. It's been a while since Parks and Recreation has looked at this.
And the last words of what they were improving are off the page.
Well, the answer is invite them to the meeting.
I'd like to.
And maybe Ty or Melinda, when will the decision be made about the grant? Is it in September, I thought?
I believe it's.
At the earliest,
Yeah.
correct?
So in theory, we may know before we approve the budget, right?
Right.
They'll do a preliminary scoring to let you know this is where you're sitting, if you're close to being in contention.
In September?
I would do so.
Yeah, so we may know
We may
before
know
we
some-
finalize the budget.
Right, right. Yeah, the rest in the Grub Shack, I think is moving forward. That's going to start or has.
It was gonna start, but with the shutdown, they're behind schedule, and what did Casey tell us? We extended, there was a contract that, was it Mr. Shipton that
Yeah.
signed?
Yes.
Obviously, there was a completion date, but he couldn't start, shut down, so we extended the timeline, and I can't remember, but we can ask for that.
I'm thinking it's pretty close.
Yeah, I just don't remember. I know the contractor's still willing to do it, but just because of everything else, he got pushed way back.
Okay, so for both Parks and Rec, you're having them come in to
Yep.
discuss, correct?
Discuss.
Okay. Mapping next is under Trudy as well as Lori Spencer. And this is the updated county mapping project. I did put this in as in her description. It states that this is, after so many years, they must be updated. So,
Yeah,
This
for
is
5
the
years
year.
they do that.
And I don't know the details, but there is some, I guess, difference of opinions, and what Lori will tell you is that some counties use Register of Deeds funds. They have that fund, what's that fund
the
called?
256, yeah, the automation.
Some counties use that fund for this project. When they talked to Dorothy, she would not authorize the use of those funds for this project. But Lori and maybe Trudy can explain to you, and I don't know the operations, but she said she had numerous counties where the Register of Deed automation fund was used to cover these costs. So that's a discussion you're gonna have to have. Because it does not have to come from the general fund budget.
We're gonna be spending the money one way or the other, so.
Well, this money's
Still
there
need-
and set aside though, so
Yeah.
it's not general fund dollars, that's the question.
Commissioner Redblock.
Well, should we have Dorothy come in and explain why she hasn't allowed it to be taken out of the automation fund or why she was opposed to that? I'm
All I can
interested
tell
in
you is the responses I got that she has other plans for those funds.
And have those funds been used past year or?
No, this is for next year's budget.
Right, but I'm just saying that, in the past, if she has her automation funds for other uses,
Yeah. I don't want to speak on her behalf, so I honestly don't know. I'm just telling you, there's some background dialogue on how these, whether it should be general fund dollars or not general fund dollars. So we can bring them in and have a dialogue on that.
Let's do that.
Commissioner Ansel.
We can have that dialogue, but, they had been warning us that this was something that they do not every year, but like every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it was done. Do you remember Jen last time?
No, I do not remember.
Yeah,
This-
5 years maybe.
This was scheduled, so I don't wanna necessarily see it removed from the budget. We can have the discussion of which pot it comes from, but I think it's a valid expense.
No, I think they've
either
been
way.
done since '06. Yes, yeah. I know they've been done since '06.
Commissioner
No,
Slivers.
I agree with Commissioner Ansari. It's something we should include. I think the discussion is, where do you take the money from? And I think, as Commissioner Redbach said, it would be good to know what Dorothy had planned for the automation.
Well, we can find out.
Commissioner Walker.
And let's
Commissioner Walker
also,
had her hand up first.
oh, I'm sorry.
A quick question, but there are also, we have offsetting revenues for the mapping. Does that go through planning commission, or do those go through the register of deeds or equalization?
So the sale of maps does go through actually the mapping. So the 573 does receive revenues if equalization and planning do any specific maps for people.
That is
I'm not-
also some more revenue, right?
Mhm.
Yes, okay. I just want to make that point. So we do have some offsetting.
Yeah, she also does state in her documentation that there's possible, it says, or grant dollars needed to cover, I'm not sure what kind of grant, but.
As I remember from my one meeting with them, there are some state grant dollars. However, the resolution for those dollars would not suit our needs.
Oh.
They can shoot it at different resolutions. And there's a part of it that actually the state could cover, but both Lori and Dorothy were saying that'd be almost worthless for us. It's not the information that they need.
Commissioner West.
I think it'd be helpful when Dorothy comes in that we know how many other counties use those funds from Register of Deeds to pay this bill.
Lori provided that. I'll have Lori, because she did provide that information.
Yeah, because we do have a mapping, so some of it should come out of that for sure, I would think.
Yes.
But I do think it should be included,
Right.
So, I mean, it wouldn't have to be all from
We'll invite them and we'll
Okay.
see them.
John?
Mr. Chairman, the 2019 revenue for the mapping fund was $3,400.
It's not a substantial amount.
3,400 is all, is that from, where did that come through? Equalization or?
This is charges for service, aerial maps, transportation maps, special maps, etc.
Okay.
I believe we have agreement that if it's from another unit of government, we don't charge them. So I think
Okay,
that's why there's not much.
so we have some offsetting, but not what we were hoping for.
Thank you for that.
I thought that's what it would be.
Yeah, thanks, John.
The next item is within the planning commission.
Before we go on, but,
Sorry.
but for the sale of the maps, that goes, when they first come out, they're new, we have higher revenues, correct? And then they taper off. So this may be the tail end of the
Yes.
sale of the county maps. So we may have higher revenues than that the first year.
You
Very
may want
popular.
to check on that, because if they're online and digital now, that may be a different format too, because a lot of it has been, very few do actually get physical. We'll have to have them come and explain it.
Yeah, I don't know, I found it to be very popular.
It is.
They like to have them, they're beautiful maps. And I don't know, I've got.
Oh,
a lot of requests
they
for
are
that.
beautiful, yeah.
Yeah.
They do a great job, they're very detailed.
Any other questions for that? All right, then we move on then to planning.
In Trudy's notes, she has that there's $5,000 that she's including for per diem and mileage. For additional expenses, they will be meeting more often regarding the county's general plan. So I included that because that is something that has not been that high in the past. So I did want you to be aware of it.
So the planning's gonna meet more often now?
The planning commission, yes.
Yeah, because then they have to update the general plan, so. And it's up to 5,000.
A lot.
It's a lot of meetings.
There's quite a few people in that. What is
Planning
it, 10
department.
or 11 people?
Yeah, 1,100.
So leave it in?
And I assume you don't want Trudy to come and talk about that.
No.
Okay, so planning commission was to include.
Yeah.
The next one is the senior services department.
Yeah, let me briefly address that. April's looking at some restructuring of personnel. As you know, she actually voluntarily cut her staff last year, and David left. And so she doesn't have a plan yet. She's working on one. She didn't want to come up with a full plan until there's some other issues that I prefer not to talk about now that may have occurred in that office. So I think the best is just have her come in and provide you an overview of what her vision is.
I don't have a problem having her come talk about this, but I also want to see what's the status of the millage money? How much is in the fund, or if we got extra, we're running behind, where are we at with that? So that's be very important to me in making this decision.
Yep. The key issue I'll let you know is she's not asking for any general fund dollars, so it'll be from there.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and she'll have that. So I assume you wanted to come in, correct?
Correct.
Well, the last time we looked at the budget, she was well under her income. So, I think that the money's gonna be there if that's what we want to spend it on for more personnel, but the population is increasing, so it'd be good to have her talk about that and see what we want to do.
There are some things, and I don't go into great detail, but there are some things she can restructure and maybe be more efficient, so it may cost more in one category, but save monies in contracted service, for example. So there's some other things, but I don't want to speak on her behalf until she has a full plan, which she will have when she presents.
The next request is under the IT department. It is included. It's also included then in the cost allocation to all the other departments. He is requesting 2 servers for a cost of $50,000.
It's more than that.
Yeah, just what you said.
Maybe then some email services, network or network.
Yes, I think that the major purchase though is
25, it's half,
Okay.
half of it.
This 25 is half of it, so that's just, we just put on here new IT servers is the big bulk of the 50. But he does have more that he's requesting.
What is the cost of doing business in this era?
Well, and, I mean, is he gonna have to up his, allocations to each department?
No,
No? So it's gonna end up.
I've already included all that.
Okay.
On a side note, and this is not budget, you'll get more information in my update tomorrow. We've been in dialogue with Spectrum, and I got email, Ron got email today, actually. We right now have 20 megs of internet capacity. They're gonna increase that to 100 at no cost to us. They had to do some changes and some equipment, it's their cost, but they have agreed, and I saw it in writing today from an engineer, that we're gonna go from 20 to 100. I can't tell you when that be, but in my mind, a simple math, that's 5 times more space at no cost to us.
What they're basically doing is saying they're gonna give you the same level of service that they're giving their residential customers.
Oh, yeah.
Already.
Good negotiations.
That's a positive development.
That does mean when Ron talks to us from his office, it won't be breaking up. We'll be able to see him and recognize him. That's good news.
I think you always can recognize Ron. You may see him clearer, though.
So we don't need him to come.
I don't think you. It's up to you.
Typically for those two, he does come to you, we leave them in and then he'll come to you at board meetings and
Right.
ask for those requests instead of a blanket, yeah.
Okay.
Next on the information technology, we put this on, this was put under Ron, it could also be under BOC.
I put that in there.
Yeah, this is the Polycom.
It's gonna be a way of life here. We are not gonna, originally, I think Ron, when he first came 2 months ago, we talked about a fixed unit. I think the portable one is much better. And just to clarify, and Jen can verify, you're using this on a very regular basis. I'm saying the courts
Yes.
are using this on a regular basis. And now, most departments are using it. We're having staff meetings on it. Most commissions are using it.
Yes,
We are
most of
actually
our-
hosting meetings from some other units of governments that don't have that ability to use it. So it definitely is almost a requirement now.
I think it's a new normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're gonna put that under IT instead of the BOC.
It's up to you.
It should be under IT, in my opinion.
Yeah, if we're not the only ones using it, other organizations.
Yeah, it should be.
That someday we're gonna have a conflict between the courts and
Well,
being here.
if we have two,
Yeah,
we can
yeah,
back each other up.
yeah.
Well,
I assume if we did have two, Jen, you would take this back up to the courts, I'm assuming.
Yes, we would take this back up to the courts. For instance, on the day after Labor Day, when you have your executive,
there's two of
we
us.
will be pushed out so that you guys can use it, and we'll be using the smaller unit that's in probate court. And so then the judge from council can't have a hearing that day, and she has to adjust her schedule.
Wonderful.
Sorry, I get it.
All right.
We'll
I
be
have it
here.
down for 2. I apologize for being late then.
I have a question. Is it possible that you might want to think of this Polycom request for this year? Sooner rather than later?
I'm open to that.
Well, I would think the price, because it could go up if we don't. And we do have that proposal.
We
So-
do have the bids. I believe the companies would be willing to honor those bids. However, we have to modify that because that was for a fixed unit. I think we all agreed you want the portable unit. But we can check on that.
So I can put down here that the Polycom request could come in
Well, I put it on
2020?
the agenda for September
Okay,
in our regular meeting.
Good idea.
otherwise I'd have to include it for 2021, so I just want to make sure. Okay,
Yeah.
Polycom request set for 2020.
So will that fit into this year's budget?
Of course it will.
I thought.
But it's
Just
Ron's
let it
budget,
down,
so-
buddy.
I'm spending Ron's money.
We'll just start with this memo. We're on the first
Sooner the better.
item here,
Okay.
and we're down, we just decided to accept it.
All right.
And I can give Deb an update on the hazard pay afterwards. Okay, so I'll put that on our agenda. we'll try to firm up the bids that we received and provide you a recommendation.
Any objections? All right, then we move on to capital projects.
I just wanted to double check on this one because I thought I put this under, even though it says capital projects, it would be a capital improvement. I believe that I put this in Jerry's budget because it was less than 5,000, then running it out of the 470. I just want to verify that that is where I put that. And I believe his explanation, is
It's in here.
in here, yeah.
Maybe
Make sure that I've got it from the right.
So shouldn't that be under building and grounds?
Yes, I believe that is where I put it. So it would be a capital improvement, it's just that it's, yes, I did put that in Jerry's budget under the maintenance department, if you'd like to keep that in there. So it would be, it is maintenance department, capital improvement.
And I think, would any of you like to have Jerry come explain the finer details of
No, thank you.
split coupling pump?
Do you want to?
No.
But we had a problem with them this last winter, is that?
Well, that's why we're,
Yes,
yes.
that's exactly
All
what
right.
it is.
Okay, so consensus is to keep it in. The next items that are on here, are all from Chet.
Yeah, this is basically an update on what Kirsten Polycaster presented last month, and he said, that was just an overview for you to get some dollar numbers. I assume you want to have a discussion on how you want to proceed here, long-term, with the HVAC system. We have some needs that are going to have to be addressed one way or the other. We may not have to do all of phase 2 or phase 3, but as you know, with those heat pumps, they are going to go out. We are finding out that we're having some issues with the temperature control here because the line that's under the building where the, I'll say antifreeze, I know it's not antifreeze, there's actually a crack in it and it's leaking, and that's why we're having some of the issues that we're having here. That's going to have to be addressed. I actually asked Gary O'Connor to come up with some options because, and some costs associated with that. I'll probably have those maybe as early as next week or two, because that's something, we're finding a lot of problems we're having, that's actually because of that. And so the good news is, we found out what the problem is. The bad news is there's a problem. There's a leak. It's not environmentally sensitive or anything like that, but it has to be addressed. And the leak is right under the cement, so you can't just put new pipes in there.
Well, like in Traverse City right now, they're running and putting sleeves inside the pipes.
Yeah. So anyway, he's gonna come up with,
You have to do something like that.
he's coming up with options and specific costs.
All right.
So the leak we had under the cement that we repaired once was,
That was a completely separate as far as I understand. That was before I was here, but that's.
I believe that that was to the boiler.
Yeah,
And Gary was explaining to us that this is the system, that's a coil system underneath, and it's a water return, and so with the leak, it sounds like sediment gets in.
Yes.
When he flushes it, it sends that sediment to everybody's heat pump. So just recently, our screen was full, and so it won't cool. So we were at 78 degrees again, and we didn't know
I
why.
guess the good news is, we thought we'd have to replace those heat pumps,
you know,
All
might not
at
be the heat pump.
8,500 a piece, but it's not the heat pumps, it's all the, and Gary actually showed me the filter, it's just completely plugged up. And you can figure out, where is this coming from? But the problem is, if you, it's almost a damn if you do, damn if you don't, because that system at some point is gonna be replaced. So you wanna spend the money, completely replace it now, or you wanna spend the money and repair it, knowing that you're gonna have to tear it out in the future at some point. And that's just a simple overview, but Gary will be here with more detailed information. But he's, as we speak, probably working on a price. I talked to him this morning on it, but just want you to know that it's coming at some point.
But it's not 1,976,000.
That's, no, that's for all of the project. What I put down is a number that Kirsten gave you to do everything, just so you know. So I would think you want to do everything else first, get your budget and see where we are, and see what is high priority and what needs to be done versus what can wait.
Right, this is with the chillers?
I believe, yeah. So I assume at some point, not our next meeting, because we have a pretty full agenda already, you want them to come in and give an update.
Just tell him I asked him to put in some inline filters to take care of that
All
problem.
right.
I was just thinking too, Tom,
Commissioner
why-
Anzerky will solve the problem.
Why aren't there any lines?
I got some old fuel oil filters, I can get them for nothing.
All right,
I don't know the way the system is working, but it's not tied into the previous leakage.
we did leave in the $250,000 proposed for MERS. So that is included, still a rolling budget there. And then other issues that would require potential dialogue. Right now, to balance the dam fund, I did use the transfer in, and that is just for utilities. So if they come back with more projects or such, then you'll have to put that as a case by case.
As you know, we kind of held off on some projects. We did what was considered essential. There are some OSHA issues that were not addressed.
And then other issues, and right now with potential dialogue, we did roll in what we feel is as close as we can get with the health insurance cost, and so that those amounts are represented in your staffing levels.
Are they more
They
than
are.
this year's?
No, they're the same numbers that I had amended for this year. Mhm. I believe the state allows us to go up 2%, but that hasn't come out from them yet as to what 2021 would look like.
The other major issue that's not on here, because it actually just surfaced recently, is our court costs. As you know, there's a significant deficit. Commissioner Walter and I, or was that last week, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
Time kind of slips by, but they're estimating approximately 350,000 at least deficit for this year. And as far as I know, they have not submitted a budget for 2021.
We did receive an email, John, I did just the other day, and Carol puts, I was gonna print that out and bring it, because I wasn't sure if we were gonna get into expenses today with the court. She shows it 5,000 or 6,000 less than what I have. So on her expense side, she's actually lowering our expense, but that doesn't include the deficit, which
Because they
would
have
be,
no
I think,
revenue.
11,000 of that is what we would owe.
What the Director of Finance for Grand Traverse County estimated is approximately at least $350,000.
So our portion would be, like you said, 11% of that.
Yeah, 38,000.
But that's for this year.
Yes.
That's for this year, but revenues will be down again next year as well. So we need to have a plan in place to say, how are we going to address this?
And that's why I
And-
suggest we add it to the agenda.
Yes, we have to talk about this.
I can tell you, we are attempting to set up a meeting with the court administrators and judges and the 3 county administrators in the near future, and then the entire judicial commission is scheduled to meet in September. But I think we need to have a discussion about our budget and our allocation, because it's a 3 county partnership. And I know, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but it was evident that Grand Traverse County was caught blindsided by this. They were not aware of the deficit. And there was not, I guess, much dialogue between the courts and the administration there. Even at our staff meeting here yesterday, Carol Stocking was on the Polycon, and she said she was not aware that they had a deficit. But I'm getting different feedback from Grand Traverse County, so I don't know where it is, because we're not involved with that other than this, but there is a significant budget issue that's going to impact all 3 counties this year as well as going forward. It has to be addressed somehow.
My initial gut reaction to this is to say, okay, we need to have a plan in place to reduce expenses, to recover this year's and future years' forecast of expenses.
By the official agreement between 3 counties, if there's a budget deficit, they need to develop a plan.
Right,
And
and
that's,
the plan can't just be, well,
well,
here's
that's
pay.
what we have to, that's why we're gonna have a special meeting in September. And so I believe the chairman and vice chairman are on that commission. So Belinda was at last meeting, and I think the last couple of years you've been at, I think, every
Yeah.
meeting.
Yep. And I suggested to them that perhaps they have too much staff because the caseloads aren't there, and they were allowed to furlough employees, that perhaps it could be done in step somehow.
You know,
They have to come back with a plan.
until that is addressed,
Commissioner Wessel had his hand.
When we're done with the court, I wanted to come back to the MERS I think it'd be helpful to have, as a part of our budget discussions, an update on where we are and whether 250 is enough. And so I'd like to suggest that we have an update on our MERS as a part of budget discussions.
What we normally have done is had all the debates on all the other issues first, and then talk about MERS at the end to see if you want to put it up higher or lower.
My comment is that maybe that's where we ought to start.
So
Uh,
so I'll just circle at some point, you want to have a discussion on MERS, right? Yeah.
Commissioner's answer.
All I was gonna say is, we have to have a plan not only to address the deficit this year and the forthcoming years, and that might be a significant reduction in expenses at the courts.
Well, their expenses mainly are people.
I understand that. There's a cost to what you do.
And I think Commissioner Lochner really talked about exactly, which is the hard decisions that have to be made. Nobody likes to make those.
No,
Commissioner
very
Rush.
good.
I guess my question is, are we going to see a plan before we finish our budget?
Yes, because we're hoping to have a meeting with the administrators and the court representatives in the next week or two. And I believe the date for the commission is it September 11th, or approximately?
Yeah.
I don't have
the
it,
next
but
week or
yes,
two.
the answer is yes.
And are they actively working on a plan at this point?
I can't tell you that.
We don't know that.
I think it was quite clear, and maybe Melinda, you can agree with me, that all three counties wanted a plan in place.
Okay. So they know
Sooner
the
versus later,
expectation.
yes.
Yes,
I think that was very clear.
that was very clear. Yeah, we expect that, yes.
Commissioner.
The point I'm trying to make is the plan needs to incorporate how are we going to recover from the deficit this year as well.
I would
So,
hope that-
if I was a bank, I'd say, okay, I'm gonna loan you the money this year because of the deficit. I wanna see the plan, how you're gonna pay that back to me.
Well, there's two options. Either they come up with a plan that you agree to, or you come up with a plan.
And I'm trying to give the commission members, my perspective is that you gotta come up with a plan to address the deficit, not just next year, but this year's deficit.
I think that was made clear at that meeting. How do I say this? And Commissioner Walter can maybe agree that it caught quite a few people at that meeting off guard, the deficit was so large, and that there was no plan, even at that meeting, how to address it. It's, I know there's significant dialogue going on in Grand Traverse County about this, because theirs is
The lion's share.
70-some%. I believe, I could be off a little bit, ours is 18, or is 11%,
11.
Antrim is 18%.
Yeah.
So you look at that, that's 29%, so 71% is Grand Traverse County, and that's a significant dollar amount for them.
That's over 200,000.
Yes. That's just a deficit.
Yeah. That's just this year.
Yes.
Are we ready to move on?
I think so. Well, was there anything more wanted to be said about MERS?
I like what Ty said.
You want to start with MERS?
Well, I wanna know where we're at.
At the next meeting, then we'll,
You mean as far as the percentage paid?
Right. How much do we owe?
okay, next Friday. Now, you gotta remember, that changes any day you.
I understand that,
So we'll put that on next Friday's agenda? That's our next meeting, Friday.
Yeah.
And what was the time next Friday? Just on.
Is that 9 AM? I think.
I believe so.
Yes, it is 9 a.m.
Okay. For some reason, it was in my calendar for 2:00.
Ty did that. Ty wrote it in there at 2:00.
I think you were thinking the original meeting on the septic systems at 2:00.
Could have been.
That's where you got the 2:00.
Could have been.
I'm guessing.
But again, my apologies.
Are there any topics that we have not covered?
Commissioner.
And I'm glad John is here because I'm gonna kind of talk right to him. But, we get a lot of information from the Associated Counties, you guys all see those same things that I get. And one of the things said that there's an expectation that the sales tax hit to the state is gonna be between 8 and 10% reduction. So, do we have a forecast of what our revenue sharing dollars from the state, how much we expect to get next year? Have you done any massaging to say, okay, we know we're not gonna get as much as we got this year. It's gonna be less. Do we have any good numbers?
No, as I brought up in the first meeting, we are still one of 2 counties that still have reserves. And,
We'll get those.
but there will be no excess money coming from the state with regards to revenue sharing. We have all the money that would be appropriate.
What Tony was talking about earlier for me is all of our state grants and allocations put together, not our revenue sharing, because that's what I thought when he first talked to me. So let's say, for instance, on the audit, you take in 800,000. He stated to me that MAC is saying 10% that won't come in.
I can give you a number.
We have already, I know, like the health department, they've already told the health department, you're not gonna get these dollars next year because we don't have enough money to pay everything.
Let me give you an update on that, because we met with Mr. O'Malley recently, and everyone's asking the same question. Schools are asking the questions everyone's asking. The state this week is having their revenue sharing conferences. There should be some announcements coming up, maybe as early as next week, because everyone's saying we need to know what the state is projecting. The state has not released any funds for any group. As you remember, a couple months ago, Senator Wayne Schmidt made a comment, probably off the record, that state aid to schools is going to be reduced by 25%. That made national news. And he says, no, I was just saying that it could be as much as that. So I think the lesson was learned in Lansing. Everyone's keeping their mouth closed until they have official statement. The group that projects for the state is meeting this week. So we should have some ideas, maybe by next Friday's meeting in the near future, but they will not commit, at least of now, any type of projections for 2021 until they finish their state revenue conference meetings.
Well, I mean, I thought we got a hint when we talked about the road patrol, it was, last year we got about 41,000.
I think it's 36.
Yeah,
I thought, but then they gave us 4,000.
Oh, when there was an excess,
Yeah.
correct.
I thought they gave us 4 or 5, so,
Right.
and now it's 22.
Exactly.
So you're looking at almost half of the revenues that, just for the road patrol.
Yeah, that's just one.
And that's been reduced every
Right, but
year.
I mean, that, to me, that's an indicator of what's gonna happen.
And you're absolutely right.
And part of it is, the state, not just Michigan, a lot of states saying we need help from the federal government. And they're waiting for the next potential federal stimulus package. So it's very difficult. So there's no way John or anybody can give you a
They ran out
legitimate
of
answer.
paper.
They ran out of paper, yes.
Yeah, more. Commissioner Lott.
I haven't read anything lately, but I do wonder about the states, should see a surplus in dollars kept from bottle returns.
Yeah,
Well,
just
if I
read that
understand,
this
a lot of
morning,
people
too, yeah.
gave up, but they're just throwing them away, and that's dollars for the state. But I don't know what that equates to.
But those monies,
Where
it's
do they
interesting you brought it
go?
up, the Detroit Free Press this morning, I read it. There's talk about, all that state is allocated for a specific fund, it doesn't go into general.
That's, okay, that was my next
And
question.
there's some
where it
debate on
goes.
how much it should go for what cost, but it does not help the state budget.
Probably environmental, it's done, okay.
Commissioner.
John, I don't know if this is something you can put together for us or not, but this year, how much money did we get from the state for all those different programs? So that if we have to sit down and say, okay, let's just make a wild ass guess because nobody's gonna give us any good solid information. If we said, we're gonna expect 10% less, how much money is that coming out of our budget? So if you could look at and give us that number, we gotta work from something at some point in time, because we may not have good information by the time we gotta finish our budget.
No, I think you will, because the reason is, you'll have it by September 1st, is what I'm hearing. Because school districts are starting, and they have to know exactly what their budget is. And so what I'm hearing, what I'm being told is, we'll know maybe as early as next week. At least an estimate.
I'll follow up with Jeff and make sure that we have something.
Oh, yeah,
If I may ask Commissioner Ansel, does your request include all grants?
if it's coming from the state, I want to see
Anything that
everything,
comes from the
including
state.
the grants, like the road patrol
Yeah,
grant.
I just wanted that clarification.
Yeah, I think that's important because you look at what happened to Elmwood, you know, in their marina.
Shut them off just like that.
You know, that was already this year.
And that was already approved.
And
Yeah.
the Solon Park also.
Oh, that's right, yeah, now that. The Cedar River,
Cedar River
and their
Park.
money got taken away too.
Yep.
All right, so then, we don't do anything on the dam authority budget?
Just that you're keeping that funded through the
Right.
general fund.
Well, we have to get it in the contingency, so that we fund it from that, is that what we're gonna do?
I just generally do a transfer in.
Okay. All right. Because, I mean, I know it's gonna be about 20,000 a piece, that's what they're projecting per year. Commissioner Ansel.
And again, you're having everybody in the county pay for that when it's benefiting just those property owners. You could still do a special assessment to recover that money that should be paid by those property owners and not everybody in the county. That's my 2 cents again. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like that suggestion better than draining the lake.
Always options.
Now we'll move on to health insurance costs.
All right, so inside the budget, as I stated just a few minutes ago, so you have the 2020 costs in the staffing levels for health insurance. I won't have a letter probably until the fall. If the governor increases the cap, it's typically by inflation or 2%. So for right now, we are using the 2020 rates for health insurance for the 2021 budget.
Do they typically change every year?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit?
Yep,
Up or down?
up, goes up every year.
And that's really not much we can control that. So. Is there other major topics that we have not covered where you'd like more information on?
Just a memo from the sheriff.
Yeah, we talk about that.
Okay.
Just on this, is there any department that you'd like for us to bring in or get questions?
Commissioner Ansel.
Okay. I forecast that we are going to have to come up with some cuts. I really believe that, you know, and at some point, we're gonna have to say, yeah, we're gonna have less revenue coming in, so we have to cut our expenses to keep balanced budget, or keep stealing money that we're gonna drain our reserves and not have anything out there at all. So I would like to see, and, you know, I want to be honest, the sheriff's department's our biggest budget item, you know, as far as departments go, you know, by far. What cost-saving measures could we look at in every department, but, you know, obviously the sheriff's is going to be the biggest one if we have to actually cut. So we should be prepared to have that discussion. And I have a couple ideas, but, you know, maybe there are other ideas out there. So if people have ideas where you believe we can make cuts, I'd like to have you think about that, and then at the next meeting, maybe have that discussion. So we are prepared when the bad news actually hits us.
Commissioner Sutis.
I was just going to say the health department. I know that, you know, the early childhood program is, they're working on that, are they not?
Oh, yeah.
So, and coming up with a 5-year plan, so I think it's good for us to hear that and what they're looking at.
Jen, have they submitted a budget?
From the health department, it was less than 1% higher.
I thought there was.
It's very small. It may be something that you want to happen here now if, like you said, you're just getting confirmation that the state isn't going to pay for some things. There may be options that you want to supplement. It's typically a 2 to 3 to 5 increase, but it's only
We're kinda
less than
surprised
1%
that,
this
yeah,
time.
it's a small increase.
It's a very small increase on their budget.
And you're talking about other items.
Yes, on the actual health department, not the child care.
So the early child has a
Not the early
restricted
childhood
fund,
different.
and I know they're working, I think, and my only discussion was with Michelle Klein maybe 6 weeks ago. They're working on a long-term plan that they hope to present, maybe in September, but most likely in October to the board.
That's what I was looking for. Is that part of our budget discussion?
That will not be, because that's the millage money for the early childhood.
Okay, then take the health department out.
Okay,
I mean, technically, it would be part of your budget,
Well,
but
it
not
is.
part of your general fund budget, I guess.
But it is part of our budget, right? I mean, part of what we want to decide upon going forward.
Peachy has her hand up.
Yeah, I know, but Commissioner Rushing had it first, then I'll get to her.
I'm looking for a clarification on Commissioner Ansari's statement. When you talked about cost-saving measures for our departments, are you requesting that department heads from each department develop a list where they feel they can cut their departments? And should we suggest that first?
You can ask, but I can't believe any of them are gonna volunteer to say, hey, I got extra.
Let me
money.
suggest this.
Well, if I may say, if I'm a department head looking at my department, would I not better know where my slush dollars are allocated to? I would like to see the opportunity for each one of the department heads to review their own budgets and bring their suggestions to the board. If they know we're gonna cut, if we take a 10% or a 5% and cut across the board and say, nope, we're not gonna do this, but yes, we're gonna do that, and they're like, that's detrimental to the operation of my department, they know better where they can cut. I would like to give them the opportunity.
By all means.
Yeah, so.
Let me say, I think that'd be a great discussion to have in September, and this is why I say this. Our next meeting is August 21st. We pretty much have a full agenda already, and I sincerely believe by September 1st, we'll know what the shape is.
I agree.
Because until then, it's so hard to guess. You know, let's say next week, there's a federal stimulus package that allocates money back to the states. That changes everything. However, if there is no stimulus package money, that once again has a tremendous negative effect what the state does, which will impact us. So until we have those answers, now once again, everyone wants to know what and you gotta remember, the state budget starts October 1st. So they need to make some tough decisions here. They can't wait till December. I mean, technically, we could wait. They can. They have to have, by the Michigan Constitution, their budget has to be balanced. So they have to present a balanced budget, and it has to be approved, because it starts October 1st. So they really have, 6 weeks to finalize their entire budget in place? So that's why I say, I think by September 1st, we'll have a better idea. So we're looking at meeting next Friday, which is the 21st, I believe.
Yes.
I would
Yes.
say our meetings in September, go through these lists, get your answers, and then really in September, look at the revenues, because I think we'll have a much better idea. But I would hate to have a lot of people do a lot of work and then have it not be fruitful. So I would recommend we look at these, talk about the items that you already have identified, want answers on, and then look at the actual revenue coming in, and John can work out the numbers of how much state dollars you get. Because the state has to make some choices. They can't push this off any further. Like I said, the revenue conference is going on this week, so everyone wants to know what their budget is.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
I can't remember what I asked.
Sorry.
It was so long ago. I think it was just a comment about the early childhood, that there is a committee that's working at the plan, and they have one more scheduled meeting. So I think we'll be hearing from them in the not too far future. That was what. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Solis.
I was just gonna say, I think the dollars from the state that John was putting together will be very helpful because it gives us an idea of how much, I mean, we know most of our revenue, where it comes from. So that is going to be a much smaller percent, and most of our costs are tied up in personnel. And you can't hear me. Okay, I will repeat. Thank you. What John is doing in terms of state dollars, just to give us an idea of our current budget, if it were a normal year going forward, how much that is relative to our tax revenues. I mean, that's where we get most of our funds. So therefore, what percent are we really talking about? And then we have to look at the fact that most of our costs are personnel. So issuing a percent across the board is going to be kind of tough.
Go ahead, Tom.
Just for perspective, not picking at the prosecuting attorney's office, but if you look at their budget, their total budget's $585,000. 87% of that are fixed costs. 87% of his budget is fixed.
John, does that include wages?
Yes. So if you were to do a 10% cut,
I threw that number.
really nothing to cut. I mean, that's education. Actually, I apologize, it's less than that because I didn't put computer charges. I put the building and grounds in there, so it's an additional 23,000. So there isn't enough to cut to make up that difference.
That was exactly my point.
Commissioner.
I just want to be clear. I threw that number out there randomly,
Oh, yeah.
just so you're clear. I threw that number out
No,
randomly.
no, and I just want people to understand, I mean, these budgets, when we're looking at them, the big part of it.
And maybe we should know that. Maybe we should know what the department fixed costs are and, what are allocated fixed costs. Maybe we should delve into that a little bit deeper so that we understand what the margin is between their existing fixed costs and their so-called slush fund. That'll give us a better perspective. You look at the numbers every day, we don't, we see one lump sum, and we don't necessarily have that differentiation between fixed and
And I think all of you know this,
discretionary.
but when you look at the budget, and I'll just go back when I was in Charlotte as superintendent, we had to make some budget cuts. Aaron said, cut this percentage. Well, personnel costs for us are 85%. And then you add the cost of the buildings and grounds, utilities, heat, all that. And then we had transportation costs. We had about a 7% margin. So whenever we had a budget cut, it was people. I mean, you can cut all the supplies, all the conference and travel, all the subscriptions, and it doesn't amount to anything. And so that's, I think, what John's point is, and it's a good point. Yeah, and we should look at it, but really when you look at that, and not that you would recommend it, but if you say 10% across the board, we're talking about laying people off. It's not a reduction of their budgets. It's-
Yeah, I think that's what Commissioner
Yeah.
Little was talking about.
But,
If we're talking cops, we're talking people.
I would really recommend we wait till September to have that dialogue, when we have a better idea.
I prefer that myself too. Commissioner Ansel.
The other issue, and I'm sure you guys read the same things that you get in your mail that I get, there's the expectation that property taxes payments will be delayed. A lot of people will not be paying them on time. Do you have any words of wisdom for us?
No, the legislation is trying to actually push through a waiver of interest and penalties for those individuals that were affected by COVID. But that's only for the 2020 levy. We will be able to sustain through 21 because we're not going to touch the tax funds in this budget or in our current year budget. And I'll have enough money to make sure that we get paid in March of next year. It's 21 fiscal year.
Following
My
year.
concern will be, what my collections will be then. So for 2020 and moving into 21, we should be fine. It's the following year and what COVID looks like and what our economy looks like, that's where the rubber's gonna meet the road.
So, are you finished?
Well, I was just gonna say,
No, go ahead.
that was my understanding as well, that we have to keep that in the back of our minds, because if you take on new projects that are gonna go forward in future years, you gotta have that in the back of your mind. I won't be here, but you guys will, or I assume you will. That, you know, it may come back to bite us in future years.
And that was the point I was gonna make. I think what John is saying to us, there's a level of importance to maintain a reserve account so that we can get through mandated operations going forward, at a minimum.
Well, here's a compliment to all of you. I was on a recent conference call, and a lot of counties are delaying even starting their budget process till after September 1st, because there's so many unknown factors. So the fact that Jen and John, Michelle done all these books, we're having these meetings, we actually are a step ahead of most counties looking at this, because a lot of them are saying until there's some answers from the state, and some of them are more contingent on state funding than we are. It's so hard for them to predict anything. So they're saying, let's wait till September, start a budget process. And we've always been one of the first counties that have approved their budget for the following year. So even though it's frustrating, there's a lot of unknown answers, at least we're moving forward, which is more than some counties can. And you know, every county has their own structure, dynamics and culture, but we're doing the best we can under these circumstances. Try to give you answers and at least get some of these questions resolved before that. But really, I think the crunch time will be the first couple weeks in September when we have analysis. But then we'll have some answers, hopefully.
Well, I think the advantage of us beginning the process early on gives us an opportunity to have different types of discussion.
Yeah.
Whereas when we actually get confirmed facts, then because we've already done our due diligence, we will be able to make informed decisions. So I support the process as is.
Well, it's a compliment to all of you that you want to come and start this process, not knowing all the answers.
Thank you.
I don't want Jen showing up at my house.
I think the difference is the other counties don't have Jen's a wiki work.
Exactly.
I think that's the real answer right there.
Okay, so you're gonna work on the presentations.
Yeah, I will contact them. Our next meeting, I assume next meeting, you really want presentations, right? Next Friday.
Probably.
And I don't think we're gonna have enough time to do all this. So we'll do the best we can, and then we'll keep going and at our future meetings.
Then are there any other issues with that?
It's up to all of you. It's your meeting. I don't know how long you wish to be here, so we're ready to go forward, but our goal today, actually, in that respect, we accomplished what we wanted to, is go over this, come up with a list of presentations for future meetings and major topics.
Mr. Watt.
I apologize if I missed this, but is there a pay raise for non-union figured in for 2021? For
Yes.
non-union places?
We made assumptions you'll do the same
Okay,
as the unions.
okay.
The only thing missing is if, when POAM settles, there's no increase in here for that.
Okay. Right.
But all the other unions, the 2.5% is in the budget, and we're making assumption you're gonna do the same for the non-union employees.
Yes,
So that is
that's my
included, yes.
proposal, yes.
We normally come to you in December for that.
Okay.
Or actually, last year, I think you did it when you approved the budget. So
I thought
we didn't
it
talk
is,
about that.
Yeah, all right.
That's down the road.
At least that's in there, we know that. So.
So then about future budget dates.
Yes, it'd be nice to set 2 future meetings beyond the September 21st, August 21st date. You know, all your schedules are getting tied up from this year.
What was the next one that you proposed on the list?
Well, we're meeting for sure, confirmed, Friday, next Friday at 9 a.m. After that, we don't have any dates set.
Tuesday the 25th.
We all had on our schedule an afternoon meeting next week that we received word is canceled. We could do budget at that time.
Oh, next Tuesday at 2 o'clock.
Tuesday at 2.
Yeah.
That's a 2 o'clock meeting.
2 o'clock.
The septic system meeting that you
I'm
so
available
wisely
at 2.
suggested be postponed.
That's, well, we've got it in our calendars already, so it's not a bad suggestion. Can we,
Just so you know, then you'd have 2 meetings, 2 budget. You'd have your regular meeting Tuesday night, budget meeting Wednesday, and budget meeting Friday.
Is that too much?
That's the question.
well,
Let's get it done.
yeah, I'm okay with that.
Will that give enough time for those departments that you want to have up here to come in
Yes.
and talk?
That was what I was just gonna ask.
If you do that, basically, I can fill those 2 meetings with just reports. So I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions for them.
So you're talking on the 18th,
So August 18th at 2,
Mhm.
that's the time you had set aside. So just know that you'll be here then through the evening.
For dinner.
Mhm.
Okay, so August 18th, 2 p.m., then August, what's next Friday,
21,
21, that's at 9 a.m. as I remember?
Yep.
Correct?
yes.
It'd be great if you could look at some other meeting dates, just because I know you all get busy with committees and commitments.
Melinda asked about the 25th. I don't know.
Yeah, so.
That's Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, the 25th.
So the following Tuesday.
Won't work for me. I have board meetings Tuesday and Wednesday that week.
28th,
28th would
Thursday.
work for me.
What about the 27th?
27th.
I'm open.
Yeah.
I couldn't until afternoon.
That's okay.
I can't do the 27th.
28th, just suggested.
9 o'clock.
I'm open.
I'm good.
So August 28th,
At
what
what
day of the
time?
week is that?
What time?
Friday.
Friday?
What
10
time?
a.m.
9.
Unless somebody wants a different time. There's 9, 10, 11, afternoon.
I like the more.
Morning's fine with me, if it works.
That way you have the rest of the days. Okay, so August 18th at 2 p.m. And then we'll have to have some food brought in between that and the other meeting.
What
August 21st at 9 a.m. and August 28th at 9 a.m., right? And don't have to do it now, but if you could bring your calendars to next Tuesday's meeting, we can look at September dates.
Do we want to do September now?
It's up to you.
When do you think you'll have the numbers from the state?
I'm guessing by the end of this, I mean, they could have some out next week, could be the following, I'm just pure guessing though, but I know there's an urgency to get some estimates out. They were making that assumption by then, they would know what the federal government was gonna do. And so that may be pushed back too from the state level, so that was the original plan, to have someone out this week or next week, but hard to say.
How do Mondays or Fridays look for everybody in September?
Which days? Any days?
Any day, Mondays and Fridays? I picked those 2 days because it seems like
Yeah.
we have more success with those days.
Which date?
It doesn't matter.
7th?
We're talking
That's
That's
September.
Labor Day.
Yeah.
We should have it open.
I'm
Everybody
just,
should have it
I'm
open.
just throwing it out there, because she's looking for September dates, and so I'm saying, what about Mondays or Fridays?
I can do the 7th in the afternoon, not the morning.
Now, the 7th is the holiday.
It's Labor
It's
Day.
He was being joked.
Yeah.
I
That
can't.
doesn't mean much this year, does it?
I'm sure Jen and Laura will be glad to come in.
Yeah.
And with that said, the 4th is
The 4th.
the Friday of the holiday weekend, so
Yeah,
we would be looking at the 11th,
11th?
the 14th, the 18th, 25th, 28th.
Is your executive too long to do it the afternoon of the 8th?
Usually that's not a bad, we tried it before and it has never worked.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah. that's okay.
Or we could,
Depends on how long the present
I know.
presenters talk.
And how long the commissioners debate.
And
We'll leave it at that.
We won't leave it at that.
Well, history has proven that has not worked well,
Right.
because the fact is, none of us are that focused afterwards.
The 11th is open for me.
It's open.
September.
I am open on the 11th.
It's your turn.
I am too.
I
What
do
time?
too.
Morning again?
Morning.
9 AM?
I have you guys for breakfast.
Early breakfast. Done by 8?
Done by 9.
Okay, September 11th at 9 AM?
Right.
Yeah.
On the 18th, I'm open in the morning, but not in the afternoon.
And I'm just the opposite.
How about we wait till next week, talk about beyond that? I can tell you from history, we start planning too far in advance, you're gonna have conflicts. And we're all gonna change it.
Really, the 11th, that week of the 7th, we have a 28th meeting, and, time flies, because that next week is a holiday week.
Right now, we have 4 meetings scheduled, 4 budget meetings scheduled.
That's all
right.
Let's see where we're at that.
I like,
Let's be optimistic.
yeah.
Okay, so we've got to figure out the one for New York.
Yeah, at some point, we're gonna have an airport meeting and some other stuff, so. And probably a judicial commission meeting here that, in fact, is that on the 11th, Ms. Melinda?
I didn't write it in.
I think, I've not received anything, but let me see if I can find out when that
Yeah,
is.
let's make sure. We can always put it
Because I think we
together.
definitely need to
We
be
just
first.
planned
Yeah.
for those, so I'm sure that's one of the.
Well, sure.
Yeah,
so.
right.
Well, we'll just keep it 11,
We
I'll
have it
find
on the
out.
calendar.
But, well, the good news is, if those meetings are usually held at 2 o'clock in the afternoon,
Right. So that.
but I think it's critical that we participate in that judicial commission
We'll be
meeting.
done with budget.
Do we want to continue this process today and review maybe part of the revenue streams at this point?
We've all been here longer than you.
I'm ready to leave.
We haven't even had a bathroom break at executive budget time.
Would you question the revenue streams?
I just want to go and continue to move forward with number 3 on the action item list.
But we can do a little bit. I'm okay with this.
Could we take a short break?
Yeah.
Sure.
Take a break and then decide.
I, you
Go
know,
ahead, Ty.
I wouldn't mind waiting and just starting with that at the next meeting. And calling it for today. That would be my choice. But I'm willing to stay if it's nobody else's choice.
What about our revenue presenters? Would you have something short, easy,
It's
something
basically what's in your book.
part to
We don't have
present? I
anything
mean, like,
additional.
do I look at, do we pick one section and something to take half hour or so?
I don't have anything.
Nobody has anything.
Everything that's in your revenue is in the book.
I mean, well, I know, but do you want to talk about?
The only thing additional is the memo from the sheriff's department that I passed out about the cars.
Whatever the choice is, I mean, again,
I think Jen and I and John accomplished our goal for this meeting. Right, John, do you have anything else?
All right, so then, that's, I would say then, let's just move on to public comment. Would that be all right? Anybody object? Other than Commissioner Rushton? So we're at public comment, our second time. If you have any public comment, please call 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109. We'll take them if the phone call comes in, otherwise we'll move on to commissioner comments. Any comments? I think very good meeting. Thank you all. Did you want to say something?
No. No,
Because you and Ty are meeting after this.
I know that.
Okay. All right, then I would say we are adjourned.